Okay, Chuck Diaz here. I think this may be the last segment of the day. Nobody's called in, but that's okay. I didn't expect that many today anyway. But I want to continue with this theme about what are the duties of the president and the Congress. Okay? They're not here to tell us how to live our lives. On day one, after they ratified the Bill of Rights, there was not one federal law that told us to do anything. There is nothing in the Constitution that requires an American citizen to do anything. Not one. It only requires the federal government to do certain things that it calls out. Then in the 10th Amendment, they wrote that anything that they didn't give the federal government in the Constitution belongs to the people in the state. I call that the Big Broom Amendment. They wanted to make sure that they didn't leave any rocks unturned. So the 10th Amendment was put in there to say if we didn't put it in the Constitution, then the federal government doesn't have any authority on it. Therefore, it belongs to the people of the state. Look up marriage in the Constitution. The word doesn't exist. So there should not be any federal conversation about marriage, whether it's gay marriage, straight marriage, purple marriage, upside down marriage, or any marriage. It is not in the Constitution. The federal government does not have the right to say one word about it, okay? That's all there is to it. The Constitution doesn't say that you must believe in God. It doesn't say you have to be a Christian. The Constitution is not a moral document. The Constitution does not say it's against the law to rob a bank. It does not say that it's against the law to deal drugs. It does not say it's against the law for you to shoot up. It does not say it's against the law for you to be a prostitute. It is not a moral document. It is a political document that limits the authority of Washington, D.C., right? Right. It was followed for about 100 years. Then, in the early 19th century, a guy named Teddy Roosevelt came around, and Teddy didn't like the fact that the guys like Carnegie and Rockefeller and the rest of them, the big guys that owned a lot of stuff. In fact, I don't know if you know it or not, I think it was Carnegie, he bailed out the federal government twice. He gave them money to bail out the federal government. The federal government was so small. Isn't that wonderful? Of course, this guy was the richer than any man today. But the fact remains is Teddy Roosevelt didn't like that these guys had all that power. And if you watch the Smithsonian channel, it's called, I forget. It's about the United States of America. Anyway, and I can quote them, but I'm going to paraphrase right now. Teddy Roosevelt didn't like the fact that all these guys like Rockefeller and Carnegie and all that had all this power. And he said, I'm elected. I'm more important to the people than these guys. I should have that power. And bam, they started all these suits against these monopolies, right? They made monopoly a bad word. Okay? Where is that in the Constitution? All right? Is there the word monopoly in the Constitution? No. Okay, did they pass some Commerce Act? Yeah. Was it legal? No. So we've been falling off the cliff a little bit at the time. It's kind of like a person that jumps off the tallest building in the world, and at about 30 or 80 floors up, you hear him as he's going by the window and saying, so far, so good. That's us right now. We're so far, so good, falling in midair, waiting to hit the bottom because we're not following the Constitution, and you've got people out there that want to tell you, oh, this is an ancient document. It's old. It doesn't comply with today's things. That's why it's not a moral document. Morality changes over time. The people and the states can do that. The people and the states can decide whether or not they want to sell marijuana. The people and the states can decide whether they want a strip bar in their ward. The people and the states can decide all that stuff. The Constitution doesn't do it. The Constitution did not discuss moral values. So how can a person say the Constitution's too old? It defines freedom. It defines freedom by restricting the federal government, and the reason they did it is because they didn't want the federal government to turn out to be another King George III. That's why they wrote the Constitution the way they did. There is no other Constitution in the world that is written like ours. That's why ours is the greatest document in the world. I'll spend an hour explaining to you the difference between Canada's Constitution and other countries' Constitution versus our Constitution, right? Because you have to understand it, okay? So when people say that it's too old, how can the definition of freedom be old? The definition of freedom will last for eternity. You know, it's kind of like, when will Jesus get old? He'll last for eternity. Well, wait a minute. I forgot. We're on that. We're on the 80th floor, falling through space right now. When we hit the ground, there probably won't be any more Jesus as far as any Americans are concerned, because there won't be any America anymore. All right. So I hope you picked up something about the Constitution today. When I made the statement about my mother was a divorced woman and not a single mom, and I said there was a difference. To me, there was. I know there might be some people out there that got a little offended by that. But see, single moms, to me, maybe I ought to just leave it there. I'm going to leave it there because, you know, I think the worst possible thing that could happen to a family is to have their kid be killed, either by a bus or whatever, and or being killed over in Iraq, Afghanistan, or anything like that. And when I see ads on TV talking about women's issues as to whether or not we should buy contraceptives, when we have a world that's on fire and we need somebody to follow the Constitution, we need somebody that will lower our taxes, shrink the size of government, get rid of all these darn departments. I don't know why any state would ever call the federal government and say, hey, come and help us, give us some money, or any city. Why you do that? We've got to stop that money train right at the state and city level, at the town level. Don't accept any federal money. I'll get into the education system next week. I don't know, how much time do we have left? I've got 5 minutes. I'm kind of lonely. Somebody might want to call up 790-2040, and we could get one thing in. I want to remind you again that a Charter of Negative Liberties, Defining the Bill of Rights and Other Commentary. My pen name is C. Howard Diaz. You can buy it on Amazon, or you can buy it on my website, which is SUAnews.com. If you buy it on my website, I make a couple of bucks more. So, where can we go from here? Okay. I heard somebody talking about the oil prices dropping. Last September, I got a little news flash from this one thing that I subscribe to, which is a highly, a lot of CIA guys, it's really good news. But anyway, Saudi Arabia doesn't like Russia, okay? And before Russia had any oil capacity, Saudi Arabia would stop producing oil, and that harmed the Russians because it raised the price of oil. Well, now that Russia has the oil capacity on their own, Saudi Arabia is flooding the market with oil to drive the price down, so Russia will not make as much. Saudi Arabia is doing this because it doesn't like Russia's policies. It's not because of anything that this administration has done. It's not because of anything any American has done. It's a little fight that's going on between the Saudi Arabians and the Russians. We happen to be the benefit of that. We're getting lower gas prices. All right? So I'm going to leave you with this last thing. The Constitution was written to prevent the federal government, that's Washington, D.C., from exceeding its boundaries. Since around 1910, it has been going worse and worse and growing bigger and bigger. Someday we've got to stop it. I'm doing what I can do on this radio thing, on my website, in my book. You'd be surprised. My book got reviewed by the National Education Review, something, and it's on the internet, and it's also on my website. They think that I'm a constitutional expert now, and it's not really hard to learn the Constitution. You just have to understand what it is. And we have to understand who it is talking to. It's talking to Washington, D.C. I can't say this enough, because when you follow the Constitution, what you end up with is free market capitalism. So anyone who does not like free market capitalism must not like the Constitution. And guess what? That's the liberal thing. The liberals will try to tell you the Constitution is no good, free market capitalism is no good, trickle-down economics is no good. You know, I never got a job in my entire life. I never got a job from a poor man, okay? I always worked for somebody who created something. In my lifetime, I've created 3 companies. And the last company I created, there was about 57 people. I created 57 jobs. In the company I started in 1984 called MDE Systems, I had 10 offices across the United States and about 60 or 75 consultants, all right? I started that company as a one-man company. I started my last company as a one-man company. I started my first company as a one-man company. But I could not do that today. Some of the things that I did when I started out would be illegal today. Even if I went to work when I was 15, can a 15-year-old go to work at a market right now? I don't think so. All right? I don't think a kid can sell papers on a newspaper right now. I used to stand out on the lanes with cars on both sides of me, and everybody would freak out today. Oh, my God, my little son's out there in the middle of the street. You know, well, you do what you got to do to make a buck. Okay? The main thing is you got to make a buck. If you don't make a buck, you haven't done something right. Okay? And that's what freedom gives us. Free market capitalism, the Constitution, they're all the same thing. If you're against one, you're against the other. And these people that try to tell you that the government is going to lift all boats, the government is going to create an economic policy, baloney. All they got to do is just get out of the way. Go back into their cave. We've only got a minute left. On my first show, I'm really glad to be here. And I think you're getting the idea. Anyway, I hope you're getting the idea. I'm going to say hi to you guys that are watching me on TV. Don't forget the book, Charter of Negative Liberties, Defining the Bill of Rights and Other Commentary. So this is Chuck Diaz with KVOI, The Voice, 10:30 a.m. I'm going to be on every Saturday at 9 a.m., at least for the next 10 weeks. Except, pardon me, next week I may be in Rocky Point. I'm sorry, but we'll probably play this show over again. I don't know. See you next week anyway. Bye-bye.